Hey guys, MC Stu here, and today we are going to talk about the Jem'hadar Escort ship. This is the ship that you get when you create a Jem'hadar character. So it is a T5U out of the box, or once you get it, which is right off the bat with your level 60 Jem'hadar character. And now with the X upgrades, you can also use that on the ship. So we're going to talk about how you can get that cross-faction, and we're also going to take a look at a build on it. So before we jump into it, if you haven't already, please hit that sub button, ring the bell, give it a thumbs up if you find this video helpful. I'd really appreciate that. All right, let's go ahead and jump into it here. So this was first brought to my attention in a live stream by Film Monk Productions, and he had mentioned that the Jem'hadar ship is now obtainable, the one you get from that Jem'hadar recruit, or Gamma recruit I guess is what it was during the event, but from rolling a Jem'hadar character you can get that ship on any of your characters. So I started to look into that on my free-to-play account, as I don't have a lot of ships there, and adding that to it would be great, since essentially it's a tier 6 ship without a starship trait or specialization seating, and you add an X upgrade to it and it becomes a very, very good ship, especially for free. So when I started looking into that, I went to my my free-to-play account. My main on that is a Jem'hadar and a Romulan Tactical Fed-aligned. They're both Fed-aligned. And went to go look for it and was unable to find it. So I started doing some digging, and basically it falls in the same category as your cross-faction unlocks. So for my free-to-play account, I would need to have a level 65 KDF character. Not a KDF aligned character, but an actual KDF character that's at level 65. So I did roll a KDF recruit, and I am almost there. I'm about at 50. So once I get that unlocked, I'll have that ship on all my characters on my free-to-play account, as well as the trait from the ship that comes with that KDF recruit, which I'll be doing some videos on that probably next week once I get that fully unlocked. So again, you must have a Jem'hadar character, so the ship is on your account on that one character, and then you must have a level 65 KDF character. Once you hit level 65, all the cross-faction ship unlocks become available. So any ships that you might have gotten from the C-store that are fed, you can now open on your, or use on your KDF characters, and vice versa. So again, just to reiterate, you need to have a level 65 KDF character, not an aligned, but an actual KDF character, and also a Jem'hadar character. The Jem'hadar starts at level 60. You don't have to do anything but roll him and get through the tutorial, so you have access to that ship, and then you'll be able to grab it. So let's go ahead and go over to the vendor and take a look at how we go about claiming this ship here. So I have a level 65 KDF character on this account. I also have Jem'hadar characters as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to come over to the shipyard here, and this would be the same on the KDF side. You go to the shipyard, we're going to talk to the vendor, and we're going to say we want to get a new starship. And then I had already typed it in, but up in the filter here, you just type in gem, and it'll pop right up here. If you do not have either the level 65 KDF character, or if you do not have the Jem'hadar character, it just will not appear here. So you'll just see these other couple ones that there are available to purchase, or the fleet variants of them. If you do have both of those requirements met, then you will see this here. So let's go ahead and grab this. My fleet has a discount of 15% on DIL stuff here. If you do not, it's 1,000 Dilithium to purchase this ship, which is next to nothing. 2 TFOs and you got that. So let's go ahead and pick this ship up here. And here we go. We're just going to go with the default name, because if I go down that rabbit hole, who knows how long this video will be. All right, so I've gone ahead and claimed that. Let's go ahead and take a look at the ship manager here. Pretty busy over here. Excuse me, guys and girls. And let's find this ship here. Here we go. All right. So we have our ship here. It's a T5U. There is no gear on it at all, which is kind of weird. The one that comes on your Jem'hadar character that's given to you has gear on it, all the basics for a Polaron build. On your Jem'hadar character, you just get the ship. You do claim it, but you claim it like in a mission and they give it to you. So it's not like you go to an actual shipyard to do that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and upgrade this ship here. And I don't have any tokens in my inventory, so let's go ahead and grab those real quick here. I have some in my bank. My account bank. If they were in my regular bank, you would be able to just use those from there. So we'll just grab all those for now, so we don't have to fiddle with it. All right, so let's go ahead and upgrade this ship here. And then we'll just talk about the ship itself and the layout. So let's go ahead and complete that. All right, we have our extras there with our traits. Okay, so it's pretty standard escort. We have a 4-3 with an experimental weapon. Tactical slots are decent with 4 of those, 3 science and 4 engineering, and then we have also our extra slot with our X upgrade applied to it. Stock, you're just going to have the 2 device slots, and again with the X upgrade, we have the additional one applied to it. So not a bad layout for, you know, a good tactical build. What we're going to do is we're going to put together a cannon build on this. I'll be mostly working off of stuff that I've already gone over in videos in terms of the traits that I recommend. This is my paid account, so I have all of these traits. So we'll be demonstrating this as if, you know, we've watched all those other videos and we've acquired the gear from those. So that's going to be some of those the 5 top traits, C-store traits, as well as the fleet gear that we went over in the fleet video, and then also the Lobby gear as well. All right, so let me go ahead and get this put together, and then we'll come back, take a look at this, and we'll go test it out. Sure, it did, and it did. Okay, so on our mastery here, it's the same. Obviously, it's the same exact ship as your Jem'hadar, so you get your +5 accuracy. We are going to get our +5 defense rating, and we're going to get our extra kinetic and energy damage resistance. And what else here? No, that's just damage. Okay, so nice. So that's giving our energy weapons +10% and our kinetic damage +10%. Very, very nice. And we have our critical chance got boosted there. So let's take a look here. Unbuffed, the way this is currently built, I'm sitting just under 200% critical chance or critical severity and 50% critical chance. So let's take a look at the build here. This is a pretty standard cannon build. This is great for your escorts, for your warships that are 5-3s or 5-2s. You would just add another cannon in. So the first thing I have here is the Terran Task Force. This is a must-have if you're doing Phaser or if you are doing Disruptor. Excellent weapon. This comes from the Terran Task Force rep. Next, I have a linked, and this is a mitter-linked dual heavy phaser cannon. You can use anything you want here. There's nothing special about this, being that it's a linked. If it were a sensor linked, even still with just one of them, it doesn't really make a big difference there. So you can put anything you want in here. I would definitely recommend getting the going with dual heavy. Dual heavies are going to have an extra +10% critical severity right on the very top of it, separate from all the other modifiers. So I used to run the duals because they did a little less damage or a little less DPS, but they fired more often, and so you would it would kind of even out. But with these having the extra critical severity, it's definitely worth going with the dual heavies, even with the slightly slower firing cycle. Next, I have the Phaser Quad Cannon, and we'll jump over to Space Dock once we're done looking at this and just see how we can get this as well. It's probably worth just doing a video on this, although it wouldn't be real long. Similar to the M6 computer, this comes off of one of the Defiant variants. I believe it's the Tier 4, but we'll jump down and verify. But you can pick that up for Dilithium per character, so it's not an account unlock, but you can grab that and pull this cannon off there. I really, really like the visual of this cannon, how it looks on a small ship like this. It's kind of hard to see it, especially if you're zoomed in, but they did a good job at capturing how this cannon looks from the DS9 show. Next, we have the Dark Matter Torpedo, and I am going to make an adjustment to this build because I just realized that I'm not using the Lorca console when I set this up, so we'll change that when we get to it. So this is from the Discovery rep, and we will be using it in conjunction with the Lorca console for the 2-piece, which we'll take a look at that when we swap that out. Next, we are using the Fleet the intervention protomatter deflector, and I went over this in the Fleet Gear video. Excellent console, mainly here for the extra critical chance and severity there at the bottom of the tooltip. Next, we are looking at the prevailing innovative impulse engine, and this is here for the speed boost you get when you activate a tactical bridge officer ability. You also get a increase by 10% to the recharge time. Let's see, 10% recharge time for tactical bridge officer abilities for 10 seconds. I don't think that stacks, but if you're continually activating these abilities, then this will stay up pretty often and help with your cooldowns. Next, I'm using the Terran Task Force Warp Core, and this is here for the additional hull cap, or not hull cap, but weapons power. It'll raise that maximum level that you can have. So generally, depending on how you filled out your skill tree, you should be hitting around 2 or 125. Let's see what we have. We have 125 right now. As this starts to build up in combat, and this will build this up higher. It's probably a better choice for this. In fact, before we do the ISE, I am actually going to change this out to a crafted. The Deuterium Stabilized Warp Core, and I'm going to put this in for the negative 15% power cost. So let's go ahead and swap that out. So that is in there. We're using the Tilly Shield, great survivability shield. Nothing super special in that regards, but based on your shield power, you will get additional shield penetration on the enemy. And with where I have my shield set, which is pretty darn low, I'm still getting an extra 11.5% increase to damage. Or it's not penetration, it's damage to the enemy shield. So an additional 11.5% for running that. Next, we are running the Advanced Inhibiting Phaser Heavy Turret, and this comes from the Gamma Rep. Good turret. There is a two-piece with this, which I am currently running, not intentionally. The two-piece, and this is an option if you don't have the Lorca yet, because I'm going to actually replace this console, I think, for the Lorca. Actually, I'll probably keep this console, but let's just take a look at the two-piece here. So the two-piece has given us an additional, on this particular build, 10% phaser damage and 10% flight turn rate, which is very nice on a ship like this where we need it forward firing. So what we're going to do is I'm actually going to switch this console for this console, and this comes from a mission. It's a good console if you need to fill slots here. It's a universal console, but it is a mission drop, and it gives a good chunk of phaser damage as well as auxiliary power and some drain. It is a part of the quantum phase set, and it comes from, I believe it is Sunrise. Let's take a look here. Yep, Sunrise. And so if you're on a budget and you don't have some of these other items, the cannons from this are also very good. And then you can also get the set bonuses. If you don't have the Torpedo, you could run the Torpedo as well. You could continue to rerun this mission if you needed turrets for the back. So this here, you might get a little tired of running it. It's not real long or real hard, but you can get quite a bit of gear out of this for a phaser build, rerunning this over and over. So there's just some suggestions if you don't have your reps up, quite high enough to get to that. We did skip over 2 items here in the back, so let's look at these. So I'm using the Trilithium Enhanced Phaser Turret, and I'm also using the Trilithium Enhanced Omnidirectional. These are both mission drops as well, and the reason I'm slotting both of these is for the proc that it has. So we have and these tooltips really get all jumbled up, and it's kind of a bummer. So it is 2.5% chance to gain 10% firing cycle haste for energy weapons for 15 seconds, which is very nice. And we have that ×2 because we have both of the variants of this 360-degree weapon, the turret and the omnidirectional. This comes from Beyond the Nexus. I'm using these in conjunction with the console. The console is a great survivability console, gives you some power transfer rate as well. And the two-piece from this console is going to give us additional fire cycling haste, which is going to just run all the time, and it's going to give us an additional speed boost for plus 15 on that skill. So I use a similar kind of setup with beam overload as well. Sometimes, depending on the layout of the ship, I'll still even slot the cannon, even though it's not a beam and it's a beam overload primarily, you know, build or centered build. But by having this extra proc there, especially with beam overload, that makes just a big difference, since beam overload slows down that firing cycle haste. Okay, so let's kind of jumped around here, so let's go over, and we're going to switch this console out here, and we're going to use the Lorca Console, and we'll talk about that. I talk about it in pretty much every single build video, and I can never find the dang thing. Where are ya? Not slotted anything? There it is. Okay. So the Lorca Console is going to give us a pretty hefty chunk of critical chance, 3.9%, as well as an additional 7.9% weapons power, and also 157.5 starship shield penetration. The two-piece, along with the torpedo we're using up front here, is going to give us a stacking critical severity. So every time we get a critical hit, we are going to get +1 critical severity, and it stacks up to 25 times, and it lasts for 20 seconds. Every time you restack it, it restarts this clock. So theoretically, if you're in combat and you're at least getting a critical hit, you know, once every 20 seconds at least, then this will continue to refresh and stack. If you're getting critical hits at a faster rate than that, then you'll max out this full 25 stack much faster. All right, next we have the assimilated module. This is from the Omega rep. This, I believe, is at tier 2. You can get this pretty quickly, and this is here for the critical chance and critical severity, as well as the weapons power. The drain and control on this build obviously don't make a big difference. Next, this is from the Romulan rep. This is the 0-point energy conductor. Or conduit, I'm sorry, and this is here for the decent chunk critical chance, 2.4%. We're also getting additional power to all of our subsystems with this, and then we're also getting drain, which again doesn't really matter here. We have already discussed this one here. Well, we discussed the two-piece of this. Let's look at the actual stats on the console itself. So we're getting a negative 1.5 second shared mine recharge time, which again on this build is not a big deal. We're also getting mine damage, our overall recharge speed, and then we're getting projectile damage, which is nice since we're running that torpedo up front, and we're also getting phaser damage. If this was a Polaron build with the same kind of configuration, you could use this console here as well. And there is a Polaron variant of this turret here that we're using the two-piece together with it. So it's a twofer. It's not like super awesome by itself, I mean, with, you know, these stats, but because we are running a torp that does decent damage and it's a phaser build, it makes sense to have this in here. And again, this also comes from the Gamma rep. Next, we have our 3 Lobby consoles. I have a whole video specifically on this, so definitely check that out if you have questions on it. All of these are here for the stacking crit chance and or crit severity. Most of the rest of the stats on these consoles aren't a big deal depending on the build. On this particular one, it's not huge. The extra hull cap helps with Tyler's duality, which we'll take a look at. There's control on this, which again isn't going to matter. This is here for the huge almost 4% critical chance, some accuracy, which isn't a bad thing either. Another excellent console. And then lastly, we have the tachyokinetic converter. And this is here for the critical chance and critical severity. We also get some turn rate out of this, which is nice. A good chunk of turn rate, 39.4%, which is excellent. And then we have, again, control, which is not real important, again, on this build. Lastly, I'm using all vulnerability locators. If I had any exploiters, I probably would swap out one. That would get this critical severity sitting still over 200, and I would still be well over 50 on critical chance. But by some crazy coincidence, I don't have one of those, which is weird since this is my main tune that I've played the longest. But in any case, so those are, that is the build that we're going to run in the ISE. It is slightly different from the build that we just ran to unlock the ship. You can take a look at the stats here, our hull, things like that. They're all mediocre, nothing super amazing, but not terrible. Our resistance, not bad either, but this is really, we want to get in, blow stuff up before it can do too much damage. But again, we're not sitting terrible here. I generally, you know, if this was more of a budget build, I'm going to want to be closer to probably 30 because I need a little more survivability in order to grind down the enemy before they kill me. Flight speed, we have, is that 60 or 80? Holy crap, that's 82 on the flight speed, and inertia we have 70. Turn rate, you obviously, well, I guess we gotta move so you can see that, but we're at 64, almost 65 on the turn rate, which is great for a cannon front-facing build. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the skill tree. This is basically Augie's catch-all skill tree. So this is a little bit more, I don't want to say advanced, but specific for what I am doing on most of my builds on this account. I did just do a basic tactical skill tree for beginners and intermediates. You want to check that video out as well. But this is what I am using here. And for specializations, this is all screwed up as well, which I just realized. I should really have my stuff together, but we're doing this on the fly. So we're going to go Intel for primary and strategist for the secondary. All right, so let's take a look at the traits here. All right, so for the space traits, I organized them for the stock ones first, and then these last half are going to be ones you're going to want to work towards getting. I've put them in somewhat of an order of what's important to me, what I would recommend getting first. So we'll just take a look here just in order. We have operative. This is giving us a little bit of extra critical chance, critical severity. We are using fleet coordinator, and so when you're running a TFO, this is giving you 2% bonus damage for every teammate, including yourself. So standard TFO has 5 of you total. It's an extra 10% bonus damage. We are using cannon training for the extra 5% bonus damage. We are using innocuous, and this is to help reduce our threat mainly, and we're getting a nice little chunk of extra critical severity as well. So as I talk in a lot of the actual build videos that I've put together, especially on the budget end, but even on the high end, I mean, you'll notice on this build there really isn't any heals. What I really rely on is reducing that threat as much as possible. I do have hazard emitters, but this is more here to proc the specialization that gives me extra critical chance. I do have some things that are going to give us some additional resistance, like the subspace field modulator. We do have the this basically, it's a decoy sensor interference platform. So if you're starting to attract a bunch of attention, taking hits, you deploy this, and the enemy will start focusing on this instead of you, giving you enough time to go ahead and take down the rest of the bad guys, or enough time for your team to catch up in a fast ship like this. That's obviously going to be important. So keep moving along here. So to start with our premium ones, or ones you have to purchase, these come out of boxes. You can buy them off the exchange. They're going to vary in between about 10 and 20 million. The first 3 are really kind of pretty even for me of what I'm going to want. So this first one is going to be specific tactical. You can't use this or get it slot it on any other class. It's a good day to die, and essentially what it does is your go down fighting here. Normally, once you go under 50% health, this will become active and you can click it. And what it does is it gives you an additional 20% all damage resistance. And on top of that, it gives you a plus 50% bonus all damage, which is huge. It lasts for 15 seconds. It's a huge boost. And by having a good day to die, what it does is it removes that 50% hull threshold, meaning you can use it anytime you want to. So I would probably between this and Terran targeting for my first 2 with intelligence attaché, agent attaché coming in, second-ish, third-ish. So let's take a look at that. So what this does is on a critical hit, it's going to reduce your captain's abilities by 2%. So if you're in, the upper 30s, 40s, or in the 50s, you're getting a lot of critical hits, and you're going to be able to use a good day to die or go down fighting in conjunction with a good day to die very often. So you figure the base cooldown is normally, I think, a minute. Something made that go a little bit faster. I'm not sure what, but at a minute, you would then be getting 2% off that as you're getting critical hits, having intelligence attaché. Same thing for Brace for impact. We'll talk about this when we get to the starship traits. But with the trait that I'm using here, unconventional tactics, this is also turning this captain's ability into a damage boost. So 15 seconds, all 15 seconds, 15% bonus damage, bonus all damage. So this affects everything. And again, this has a 1 minute cooldown as well. So your intelligence attaché is going to continue to cool down both of those abilities. Terran targeting systems, this is giving you just a straight up plus 15% critical severity, which is a nice big chunk of extra just, you know, for one slot here. You really can't beat that. It's a must have. So increases critical hits, reduces speed by 10% for 5 seconds. Big deal. I mean, we're at almost 90 on speed on this, and even on slower ships, I mean, I just don't find this as an issue whatsoever. The downside of it, quote unquote, with that speed reduction, non-issue. You want to slot this is a must-have. If you're a tactical officer, you want good day to die. You want, and then if you're any kind of damage dealer, even if you're not a tactical class, you're going to want Terran targeting systems. You're going to want the intelligence agent attaché. Next, I am using Context is for Kings. This is a good trait. There's quite a few others that could go in this place and it do fine. But basically, this is either going to give us a stacking bonus resistance, or it's going to give us a stacking bonus damage, depending on whether or not we took damage or not in the last second. So it'll stack in either direction like that. And then lastly, we are using Adaptive Offense, which is a good trait here as well. So you gain 2.7% critical chance on critical strikes. 0.9 critical chance becomes 3 critical severity for 10 seconds, maximum 9. So that's a mouthful of a bunch of nonsense is what it sounds like to me. Essentially, with this slotted, if you're getting critical hits, you're going to end up getting an additional 9% critical severity. Okay, so that is our personal space traits. Next, let's take a look at our starship traits. And I'm going to be doing a little bit more on Withering Barrage, as it is the trait that comes off of that free, I guess they're calling it a tier 6 ship. The tier 6 ship that has 9 consoles that you get with your KDF recruit. And once that KDF recruit gets to level 65, you can unlock that ship, reclaim it across all of your characters. And when you unlock the trait on that ship, you will have Withering Barrage. And what Withering Barrage does is it extends cannon scatter volley for 4 seconds. So similar to the trait that we use from the Zendi ship that extends the superior weapons integrity, is that what it is? Yeah. So it's similar to this, but it's this is 1 second longer. But what it does is it extends your cannon scatter volley by 4 seconds. Now, with the cooldowns that I'm using on this build and on most of them in general, you're able to get your cooldowns pretty close to the hard bottom, which is 50% of whatever the base cooldown is. So for instance, with Cannon Scatter Volley, the base cooldown is actually 30 seconds, and with running, you know, Aux to Bat, and I'm running a half bat here along with Photonic Officer, I'm able to get that down to that minimum of 15 seconds. Well, the firing mode only lasts for 10 seconds. So even with the best cooldowns in the world, you're still going to have, you know, it's going to be down a third of the time. So by having Withering Barrage, you're extending this out another 4 seconds, and it's basically giving you almost 100% uptime. So if you're maxing out your cooldown and you're running this, you're going to have 1 second every basically 14 seconds of not having Cannon Scatter Volley, which is huge. So this is an excellent trait. It's kind of nice, at least for the free-to-play players and the people that don't spend a lot of money on the game, if you don't already have this ship, to include this trait on that recruit ship. The other thing that I'll say about this trait, though, is that there's like 6 different ships that have this same one. There's a Klingon version, there's the Defiant Tier 6 version, there's a Romulan version, there's the legendary, you know, Defiant pilot ship, there's now the recruit one, you know, so there's just a ton of sources that this thing comes from. But again, if you didn't have any of those other ones, now you can get it for free with your KDF recruit. Next, we're going to be going into the 4 traits that I went over in my top C-Store ships / traits videos. It was primarily aimed around, you know, the ship being at least somewhat usable. Some of them are very good, but mainly focused on the traits. And so we'll just quickly go through that again. If you're interested in, finding out more about these specific traits, take a look at that video that I have in the beginner's guide section of my channel. So we have emergency weapon power cycle, and what this does is anytime you activate emergency power to weapons, you are going to get a negative 50% weapons power cost for 30 seconds, which is massive, and you're also going to get a plus 20% firing cycle haste for 30 seconds to all of your energy weapons, which is awesome. If you're doing any kind of energy weapon builds at all, you need this trait. This is the foundation of all of your builds. Obviously Torpedo, obviously Science, not going to count for that, but everything else that is any kind of directed energy, you need to have this trait. This should be the first one that you get. It comes off the Arbiter. And again, I'm not going to go into massive detail on all of these because there's already a whole video on that. Next is supercharged weapons, and what this does is every time we fire a torpedo, it's going to give us 1 stack of supercharged weapons, and each stack is going to give us plus 10% damage for 20 seconds. That's not bonus, so it's just a base damage. That's nice. It's going to give us plus 1.5 critical chance for 20 seconds, and it is going to give us 6.6 critical severity for 20 seconds, and that's going to stack that 3 times. So we're going to end up with 4.5 critical chance, and we're going to end up with, what, 18, it's late doing the math, just under 20 critical severity. So once you fire off 3 torpedoes, this will be fully stacked up, and you will be looking real good. Next, we have Strike from Shadows, and what this is here for primarily is the threat reduction, especially in a ship like this where I don't have a lot of heals. It doesn't have massive resistance. It's a escort, right? So, I mean, it's not there to take a beating. What this will do is this will lower our threat generation by 60%, which is huge. And on top of that, it'll also give you a plus 5% critical chance, and it will give us plus 5 bonus damage, which is awesome. The way that this procs is by damaging targets that do not have you targeted, which is extremely advantageous when you're doing a multi-target build like this. Cannon, scatter volley, fire at will. But even on, beam overload, what I'll find is I'll fly into the group, I'll target, manually target 1 or 2 things, and boom, I have this going. And if you're in, with another team, or you happen to have a tank, or even on a pug, the chances are you're going to be hitting something that didn't currently have you targeted. So I don't find that on really any of my builds I have any kind of problems getting this to proc at all. And that's why this was on the list of top C-Store traits. Next, we have Promise of Veracity. And this gives us a stacking bonus damage, so it's plus 4% bonus weapons damage for the duration of combat when you use a pilot maneuver or a tactical bridge officer ability, which we're using tons of those, so this is going to just keep on stacking up very quickly. Maximum of 4 stacks, for 4 seconds, and a maximum of 5 stacks, so essentially another 20% bonus damage by having this. As long as you stay in combat, that will remain. Lastly, on the Starship traits, we have Unconventional Tactics. This comes from unlocking the Specialization Strategist. So once you finish this tree out, that will unlock this trait. And essentially what it does is it turns Brace for Impact into a clickable bonus damage dealer. So anytime I click this, I'm going to get an extra 15% bonus all damage. Not to mention I'm going to get a big boost to my whole hit points. And I'm also going to get a big old boost to my damage resistance for kinetic and torpedo damage, which is very nice against the Borg, the Zenkethi, quite a few species out there that really will mess you up with those torpedo spreads, high yields. So that's nice to have that running for a good chunk of the combat. All right, next let's take a look at our space reputation. So this is all pretty standard on any of the just straight kind of tactical builds where you're not trying to do anything kind of weird. But we are using advanced targeting systems for the plus 20% critical severity. We are using the precision for the plus 5% critical chance. Because I'm running the torpedo, this just made sense. So we're using the torpedo pre-fire sequence, and this is giving us a big old boost to the torpedo damage of 15.6% bonus torpedo damage, which is a huge extra chunk. This also will increase the speed of destructible torpedoes, which I'm not using any of those, so that really doesn't matter. Next, we're using Tyler's Duality, and this is giving us additional critical chance based on your hit points. And then lastly, we're using magnified firepower, which is giving us an extra 6.3% weapons bonus weapons damage. So Cat 2 bonus on that. Lastly here, we have our active reputation traits. A couple of these are kind of meh, but I really rely on these first two heavily. So the deploy sensor interference platform. This is great for if you start, you know, let's say you beat the group in between the gate, or you get separated from the group wherever, you know, whatever map you're in, find yourself around a lot of enemies. Go ahead and deploy this, and this will draw their attention away from you until others can catch up to help with the fight. Same with this here, the quantum singularity, or is it singularity manipulator. This essentially acts as a cloak. So if you're again in a similar situation where you're the only one, or you're starting to get targeted heavily, click this, and this will massively reduce your threat generation. Okay, and then we have the biomolecular shield generator. Meh, I guess it makes me feel good having it up. You know, the shields, depending on who you're fighting, they just don't do a lot. I don't build towards it. So I do click it. It does make a difference. If it wasn't there, I wouldn't miss it. I mean, I guess that's kind of the bottom line. And then lastly, the refracting Tetrion Cascade. This is a nice little boost, especially if you you know, or find yourself close to a group of enemies, you know, to click this and get the maximum out of it, where it's jumping to multiple ships. So just an extra little clicky, you can get some damage. Again, another one, if it wasn't there, I wouldn't even miss it. All right, what else do we need to look at here? Let's look at stations. So this is cannon scatter volley, so we're using the highest tier we can of that, which is 3. Next, I'm using attack pattern beta. I went back and forth on going like Torpedo 3 and Beta 2, or Beta 1, I'm sorry, instead. Either way is fine. I may experiment with it both ways, but I didn't have it slotted where I needed to in order to do that. So that's the configuration I went with it. I am using Chemosite. I don't know that this is going to really do a bunch. I find on a lot of these builds, it's just, there's too many spaces. I don't need it all is the problem. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put Chemosite 1 in, and we're going to change Chemosite 2 out to not that. No, I'm not. I was going to do it to beam overload, but I don't have that slotted here. So we'll go ahead and leave that as is. We won't go down that rabbit hole. Let's just go ahead and put it back to the way it was. Okay. So pretty straightforward here. I have an Omni in the back, so that's why I have the beam overload. And again, if I had it slotted, I probably would go 2 on that because I'll get more damage out of it. Not to mention having these different firing modes that do not share a cooldown all proc the impulse engine that I'm using, giving me that speed boost, giving me additional movement and cooldown for my tactical bridge officer abilities. For engineering, we are using emergency power 2 engines, and again, I go over this heavily in most of the build videos. There's a duty officer that makes this proc cooling down evasive maneuvers so you can get around the map faster. I'm using a half bat on this, so I'm using technicians to, when I click this here, it'll cool down my bridge officer abilities. I'm using that in conjunction with photonic officer. I could have done a full ox to bat, but I would have had to go emergency power to weapons 1, and I just didn't really want to do that, so I decided to go this direction. But you know, this stuff is just kind of how I felt like putting it together. It's not wrong, it's not right. If you went, you know, and did that other thing and did emergency power to weapons 1 and double ox to bat and, you know, something else down here, I'm sure you can have just as good success with it. No problem. So next we use Let It Go. This is from the winter event store. This is also purchasable off the exchange. So if you buy it with the stuff you get from the winter event, you can sell those, or you can just go and buy it with EC off the exchange. They don't tend to be real expensive. This does some cold damage every second, so 321 every second for 20 seconds, which, okay, that's nice, especially, you know, if it's a boss that's lasting longer. Not a huge damage dealer. The main reason I'm running it is because of the next stat, which is -5%, I'm sorry, -5, all damage resistance rating reduction every second for 20 seconds. So that's huge. If this is, you know, a big boss at the end, tactical cube gate, you know, any kind of dreadnought, this is really going to shine on those targets. And then on science, we discussed both of these here already. Hazard emitters are here for the proc. They also are giving me a heal over time, which is nice. That's why I have it in the spam bar. And we have Photonic Officer, which is working in conjunction with our Aux to Bat. Okay, so that is our Bridge Officer abilities. Let's just take a look at our Duty Officers here. And I am using one of these guys. He is giving us additional chance for, let's see here, 2% chance for plus 10% critical severity buff for 15 seconds, stacks up to 3 times. Again, if this guy wasn't here, you wouldn't miss him. I mean, if he was purple, maybe those cost, 100 million. I'm not spending it on that. So, you could do something else here. Maybe boost your torpedo a little bit more with LAR or something like that, where it reduces your torpedo cooldown time. You could play with that. Same with this guy here. This is giving me an additional 10% all damage when fighting the Borg. It is a Cat 1. It's not terrible. I mean, that's a decent boost for just taking up a slot here. Again, if it wasn't there, I don't know that I would really miss it. I definitely would miss this guy if he was not here. This comes from the Phoenix packs that you can get, and what he does is when you activate emergency power to engines, it's going to cool down your evasive maneuvers. So if you're toggling this correctly, you can keep this up quite a bit and allow yourself to be able to get around the map much, much easier. So you see we got 40 seconds here. I'm going to click emergency power to engines, and that's dropped down to 3, 2, and 1, and it's ready to use again. You do need to make sure, though, that you're managing this with emergency power to weapons, because this shares a global cooldown. So it's going to give you like a 15-second cooldown on this when you go and use that ability. And then last, I am using 3 technicians for the Aux to Bat. So anytime I click auxiliary to batteries, that is giving me... Oops, did I click the right thing? There we go. That is giving me a 20%. Is that maximum? Let's see, increase damage. This guy does multiple things, so it's kind of weird. Bridge Officer power recharge by 10% after activating auxiliary power to emergency batteries. So running 3 of these, and I do have a blue one, so it's a little bit less on her. Not by a lot, though. It's 8%. So basically, I'm ending up with about 28% reduction in that recharge time by using the Aux to Bat. When you're using 2 Aux to Bats, you're getting, these twice in a row, and those Aux to Bats are cooling each other down. So the dual Aux to Bat is definitely, I think, the best way for cooldowns. Unless you're doing science, or you're doing something that requires you to have a high auxiliary power, because when you use Aux to Bat, your auxiliary power goes away. But let's not get sidetracked with that. All right, and just for full disclosure, let's go ahead and take a look at my endeavors. I am at 256, so it's fairly high. It's nowhere near as high as Augie or some of these other guys. I think even 1-800 Broken Soul, his is pretty high as well. But I know I'm way higher than Nick, that's for sure. But this is nice. Work towards these. I've gotten a little bit lazy. If I feel like it, then I'm doing it. They just extended it out. So, I mean, some of these were at maximum, and now they've extended the cap on all of these different things. So I have quite a bit more work to do on the ones that I care about the most. You'll see there's stuff down here at the bottom that I don't really care about very much. Melee on ground, whatever. Control resistance, whatever. So there's some whatever stuff in here, but these are definitely a nice boost, especially, if you've even started to work these up and you're at 100, 150, I think it's right about where I am on my free-to-play. If I roll a new character, as soon as this starts to affect that new character, that's a huge boost. I mean, when you're looking at, if it's a science character, I mean, exotic damage, 32%, that's a huge chunk. Critical chance, 7.5, that's like having, what, 2 or 3 locators on your ship. I mean, that's a huge chunk. Same thing with your critical severity and a lot of these other ones here. These are good boosts, so definitely be working towards getting those done. All right, let's go ahead and jump into a ISA, and fingers crossed, we'll see how that goes. Let's make sure nothing got unslotted. If you've been playing the game at all, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I do need to save this because I made those minor adjustments there. All right, let's go ahead and jump into it and see how this goes. Okay, that was not half bad at all. I am extremely happy with that. So we did 248K on this, and this was with what, three Lowlifecat consoles and 5 C-store ship traits. I know that sounds like a lot, especially for a new player, but you know, if you've been playing this game for a certain amount of time and you know have started to accumulate some of these, it's not hard to do. You know, we didn't use any promo stuff or any kind of lockbox stuff on this. In terms of the traits, there is a lockbox weapon up front, but again, we could use anything there and it would make zero difference on this. So I am really impressed with that, actually. Not trying to toot my own horn. I'm just surprised that did so well with, you know, basically a tier 5U X upgraded ship that you can get for next to free at 1,000 DIL, or if you have the discount, slightly less than that. So we had a nice spike at the front, and then we were able to maintain a nice steady damage output through that whole thing. We were moving around the map. We were getting first crack at pretty much all the enemies. That's where that speed really comes into. I had someone that had made a comment a while back on the speed movement video that I put together. You know, you talk about speed, but you just sit there. And yes, we do a lot of sitting there, but you need to get to your position quickly. In a lot of these runs, it's a race between the other team members. You're competing with them as well, not just the enemy itself, and being able to get, you know, the highest kind of numbers put out. Now, that was a pug run. I don't know any of those people. You know, if you go in with planned runs or, you know, team runs, things like that, you're going to find that's a big deal. You could take a ship that's just got massive damage output, but if you don't keep up, it's not going to make any kind of major difference whatsoever. So again, I'm really happy with that. Let's just take a quick look at the breakdown here. So as expected, the Terran Task Force under Scatter Volley 3 did 42, almost 43k DPS by itself. That is a must-have. The quad cannon under Scatter Volley did 33, excellent. Our dual heavy did 33 as well by itself. So all three of these cannons performed really, really well. One thing I didn't discuss when we were going through the build is the experimental weapon. And we'll get back to that here in a minute. Let's just take another look through a few more of these things here. Our heavy inhibiting phaser cannon. This is from the our gamma rep that did pretty decent as well at 17. Dark matter torpedo spread 2 did well, and again, I think under 3 this would do even better. I think we could afford to bring beta down to 1 and the torpedo spread up. Our Trilithium enhanced turret did very well as well at 17. Chemicide actually did pretty decent here. Chemicide is something that you have to purchase. It's not an innate ability that you can just get or already have or get from the vendor. You will have to get that off the exchange, and again, that's something that's going to run you in between 10 and 20 million. It's not a break, you know, make or break for the build, but I mean, it did do quite a bit of damage. So, you know, let's take that into consideration as well. And then our Trilithium enhanced phaser beam array, which is the Omni that we have back from the mission drop, that did 11k. And again, I think if we switch this out to beam overload 2, we could probably get another 5 or so k out of that. So not a bad run at all. I'm very, very happy with that. Let's go ahead and take a look at the weapon we forgot, or I forgot to discuss here, which is the Soliton Wave Impeller. This comes from the Ryzen Corvette, the Tier 6 version that was an event, 2 years ago now. It is still obtainable, but through the MUDs market. So it's pretty expensive. You would, you know, just so everyone's clear, you don't buy anything from the MUDs market until it's on sale. And that's kind of, the whole thing's kind of a meme. It was done on purpose to kind of match that character in Discovery. It's a ripoff. You don't buy it. When it goes on sale, it goes on sale like 50% plus, right? And so there's a reason for that. Don't ever buy anything from that when there's not a sale going. This is definitely worth it. Even on sale, though, I don't know that I would spend the money just for this. You could go with the stock one. There is some from like the artillery one from the rep. There's a few others. If you have the Maquis Raider, I think it's Voice of the Prophets. That's a good one that you can get off of it. So there's some other choices you could put in there, but this by far is the best one, and it does a very, very respectable amount of damage. So I do want to note that I completely skipped over that when we were looking at it. Let's just go ahead and jump down to the starbase real quick and just take a look at where we get those quad cannons from, and then I think that will finish it up for us. All right, let's go ahead and run down here, just so if you're unaware, if you're a newer player or you just hadn't considered it, with the change they made to the lower tiered ships, they're now, you don't purchase them in the C store anymore. You can purchase them with Dilithium. And let's see if I can find it here. So I'm pretty sure that's an escort. For you, or for those of you that don't know too, for this menu, you can click and drag and it will check or uncheck. It's still kind of clunky, but it's much, much better than it was. So let's take a look here. Okay, it is not that one. I believe it is this one here. Tactical Escort Refit. Comes with the quad phaser cannons. So this is showing as having a price of Zen for it, and that is because I purchased this when it was not available to be purchased with dilithium. So for me, it's grandfathered in. When you go and look at this, this will show a dilithium price for you to purchase it. So you will be able to get that without spending Zen. You are unable to get it any longer with spending Zen, but mine still shows that because it's an account-wide unlock for this main account here. I do have this on my free-to-play Tactical Romulan tune. I spent the dilithium, I want to say, with the discount, it was somewhere around 75,000. So it's a little chunk, but more than worth it for that cannon. It does a good amount of damage, and it's got very nice visuals, sounds really cool. It's a great weapon, and it's well worth it, especially for dilithium. All right, well, I think that covers everything we wanted to talk about there. So make sure you go and grab yourself that free or close to almost free in IRL money Jem'hadar Escort ship. It's a good one. You can do very good builds with it. We could do a beam overload build with that. We could do quite a bit of stuff with that. Rapid fire build. I think the scatter volley is probably where it's really going to shine and do the most. That's why I went with that in this particular build. That same build can be put on lots of other ships as well. So I get a lot of questions. Hey, how can you do a build video for this ship? And I've really kind of shied away from that because, most of the builds you can take from one ship and put it on another with some very minor differences, some minor organization differences on your consoles, and depending on the bridge officer layout, that can vary a little bit as well. So, I mean, you could take this same build and put it on, say, like, the Vengeance. You're going to have an extra weapon up front. You're not going to have the experimental weapon, and it doesn't have a tactical commander. So you're going to run Scatter Volley 2 instead of Scatter Volley 3. But you can easily adapt all of these builds that I put on my channel. They're not specific to a particular ship. There are certain ships that shine better with a specific build on it. That's definitely true. But, look at what you got. Find, and if you like, hey, I haven't done a scatter volley cannon build, I want to try that. Just look at what you got and put it on there. I mean, you can use the same thing. It's going to do well. And then at some point you can either upgrade or purchase or, grind out another ship that, maybe makes more sense. I mean, definitely a 5.3, 5.2 is going to make a lot more sense for forward firing builds like this. But, it's a 4.3, and, we did well over 200K. So, and that was out, without gambling, without promo ships, without lockbox ships or anything like that. So it's easily, well, I don't say easily doable, but it's more than obtainable for anybody that, wants to put the time in and get the free, ship tokens, or anybody that wants to spend a couple bucks and purchase some of those ships. I mean, they were just on sale, so I mean, you can get them for 20 bucks or so. If you don't have that money, you'll have an opportunity at the end of this year to get 2 C-Store tokens. There was an opportunity last year to get some of those tokens, and they, in some cases, will run just one-off events and things like that where you can pick up these things. I hope that was helpful, guys. If you haven't already, again, please go ahead and hit that sub button, ring the bell, give me that thumbs up. That really helps me out tremendously, and I really appreciate it. So yeah, I think until next time, guys, thank you for watching. Stay safe, and have a good one.